solutions in everything that we're doing. Gotta keep the focus up, hey. Keep moving. Anything that leads to greatness is worth proving. Leaving legacy in the way we keep doing. That's how we do it. Epic execution.
Welcome back to Epic Execution, and today I'm very excited because we have an absolutely legendary guest today. And I want us at the top of this episode create this one thought in your head, which is that unfortunately, almost everything you've been taught about networking is wrong. It's all built on a lie. And that is that you need to go out and meet as many people as you can, go to as many lunches and events and get as many cards as you can. And unfortunately, most of that's just completely wrong. So today, my guest is Christopher Fong, and he spent 20 years proving that the most important thing is connection with people. And it's the most expensive thing in business to just spray and pray. Maybe it's the end of cold outreach. We'll see. But Chris has spent 8 years, just over 8 years inside Google, connecting incredible companies like Coinbase and Lyft to venture partners, venture capital firms. Then he left, and almost by accident, it seems to me, that he set up this amazing business, amazing kind of community called Zoogla, which has just absolutely exploded. And in fact, when Google laid off thousands of people, instead of the community collapsing, it doubled. It became so much more important. And Chris, I think, understands that more than anybody, that when you are in a moment of need, you don't need more contacts, you need good ones. So, and right now he's going again. He's sort of doubling down on this field of connections and really good people, etc. And I can't wait for him to share some stories with us about Zoogla, but also his new project, his new company called Key.ai. Check it out. Amazing company. And of course, he's already raised money like every good founder has. So that's really cool, but there's always room for more, maybe, Chris, I don't know. But importantly, I want to make sure that you know why you're going to stay for this 45 minutes, because as we all hear, and there's lots of stories out there, AI is coming for your jobs, but AI cannot replace many things, and some of the most human things that are the most important things. I know that's why Chris is building Key.ai, and I'm lucky enough that Chris is in my circle. So very, very lucky to have met and even worked a little bit with Chris. So welcome, Chris, to the Epic Execution podcast.
David, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's so nice to hear Aussie accent doing a podcast interview. Grew up there. And actually, from what you were mentioning, where you're located, my first office job was right at Australia Square. And talk about networking, it's because I knew a friend. And this is the most random friend I met at tutoring in North Sydney. He knew an opening at Lend-Lease. And so for a uni student, it's so hard to get into these corporate jobs and into someone's office. And so I was able to work part-time at Lend-Lease. And we could talk more about networking and relationship building, but really it's, you meet people that can help you in any walks of lives. And I think as long as you are genuine and can make sure you don't embarrass the person making an intro, but people are more than welcome to help. So thank you for having me here, David.
Absolute pleasure. So can you tell us a bit about Key? Because I know that with the number of connections people have on LinkedIn and the databases, etc., it's something about Key that's really special. I always say no one does a better job explaining than the founder.
Sure, I'd love to. In many cases, so I have a co-founder. He's based in Silicon Valley, Kushagra, and the way he talks about the startup we co-founded together. It's if you add AI to what Chris is, that's what Key is. Essentially, we all have run out of space in our heads and in our memory to really meet everyone. And frankly, everyone we meet, there's someone that could be a warm intro that can be really helpful to us. But you're really just looking for happenstance or someone just happens to remember to think of who you should be really meeting. But frankly, when you walk to any room, there's so many people in the room that can be helpful to you. But also there are so many people that wants to help you, but help themselves based on a connection, hiring, investment opportunity. So the way I describe Key is, how do you apply AI into networks and people you want to meet to unlock opportunities? We call it Key, and the URL is Key.ai is because it's like a key. We want to help people unlock opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think that there's probably not many people that have made more introductions than you, Chris. And so many people that are listening to this podcast are raising money. Could you share maybe what you think is a great way to make a warm introduction because you've got there's so many really nuanced elements in this. And rather than me share what I think, I'd love to hear the master.
Sure, great. Look, as I mentioned, I grew up in Sydney, but I was able to be going to the US to study, finish uni at Cornell, and just in upstate New York and the New York area, I got to hear of a guy called Chris Fong. So if you just Google his name and do warm intros, it's in Forbes or Fortune magazine where he was mentioning how to do warm intros and get it done. I usually try to follow that. You want to make it easy for someone when you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn or email or texting. These are three people. We seem to have common connections. Are you able to do a warm intro and give them a reason why? And then when they say yes, clearly be able to usually via email, make it really succinct with the title saying your company, why it'll be interesting for this individual, and try to have some local context of why it would be interesting for this person to meet you. In this day and age of AI, you can easily do the research fairly quickly and let the AI do the work for you and really figure out why it's in their interest to actually meet you. In many cases, even the busiest executives, they're always under the gun and under pressure to know the latest in AI and what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in markets for them to do their job appropriately. So in fact, you're doing them a favor by actually sharing what you're trying to do when you're trying to reach out to these people. So always try to think about the other individual on the other side of the table, say, how can I be helpful to them? And that's what I always try to do. And in many cases, when I meet a lot of busy people, I would try to ask at the end, how can I or the community that I've built be helpful to them? A lot of people are always trying to do different initiatives, even if they're super successful and wealthy. They may be in some kind of philanthropy or have some initiatives or causes. So someone perhaps always needs something they're trying to accomplish, and you may be the person that unlocks the opportunity for them. And as a result, if you're going to be helpful to them, perhaps they can be helpful to you in return. And that's what I always try to do in life in general. Try to be as helpful to as many people as possible. Once you're able to do that, perhaps they'll be more willing to help you. And the best thing is also don't always reach out to your contact when you really need help. Just build those relationships, friendships. I think that's what people want, right? They want to know genuine people and be helpful to as many people as possible. But they're always going to prioritize people generally if they've met them before and they really know who they are.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really occurs to me with when people move on from a role, a lot of people think their whole identity, and people have said this to me, when you change your role or a lot of your significance comes from that role, which is really only a loan to you anyway. That's not who you are. It's not what you stand for. And you would have seen this, I guess, when any of the company layoffs have happened or when someone changes a role for whatever reason, you are not the title. So when people are really making good connections as opposed to contacts, what are some of the things that you see people do beautifully?
When they make contacts, they do beautifully. It's really understanding what makes them tick, learn about them. And I think whenever you meet people, there's so many places to meet people, whether it's at a sporting event, at a family gathering, at friends' birthdays. It's like, we perhaps tend to default to, oh, what do you do? Right. I think what I've always learned from someone is a more genuine way to really understand who they are and what they're trying to do right now is what keeps them busy. And frankly, sometimes by knowing more about their family, their friends, their hobbies, you're able to build a better relationship with them. And that's where business and that's where other contacts can come into play. But also, this is something which, as you mentioned at the top, I've worked at Google for over 8 years. Google was so lucky, and I was so lucky to be at Google, where they were able to attract so much amazing talent right after the dot-com bust, where so many people consolidated within one company. Today, and even in the future, there are always going to be so many more people looking to expand and grow. And as a result, you wouldn't have the situation where you have one company having such amazing people. But a couple of people that I was trained under, they would always say that always be super prepared, but also look at how you could be helpful to these individuals by understanding their business. The more you understand their business ahead of time, the more you're going to be.
Absolutely. That's really taking the time to communicate, to listen, and to understand rather than just saying, okay, good, I've got another contact. Good, I've got another. So who really cares how many contacts you have? I really feel like there's a lot of people that have a whole trove of contacts on LinkedIn, for example, but they're just strangers, really.
No, that's
You know,
it. I think everyone now has too many contacts on LinkedIn, and even the LinkedIn algorithm recently changed where if you're posting something, even if you have a lot of contacts, doesn't mean you reach everyone. So it doesn't really matter how many contacts you have. I think it's how many people can you really reach out, and are they really warm? And how often can you really reach out to them and be helpful to them? I think the more helpful you are to people, the more you, and as you mentioned about the listening, that's why I really learned to, the more you listen and ask someone about their business, they all have something they're working on, some initiative, something's troubling them, even if they're a senior executive at a company, they have board members who are actually for their bosses. So what's top of their mind? And the more you let them talk, the more you can learn and more you can be more proactive at helping them as a result.
What was it about before Google and even before Zoogla that you realized that when there's a moment, like probably Chris as the little boy who saw that it really did make a difference having strong people around you? Was there a moment that were you born to this, Chris? Because I feel like the conversation.
No, I don't know. I don't think I was born to it. I didn't, again, I went to school in Sydney, but then there was one trip to Canberra that there was something called the National Youth Initiative. That maybe one or two people may listen to this and remember there was some kind of initiative bring Youth Australia together in one spot and really convening. I think got me to be interested in learning about people's cultures, backgrounds, and the more you know, the life is that's fully enriched in terms of the experiences you have. That's why I think people start like traveling, right? Where they learn new experiences, cultures. For me, I like learning about people, what makes them tick. And I think that's where people are always, they always say, wow, Chris, you remember people and remember small things well. I think it's just a genuine understanding, interest in people's lives and nothing to do with how can I remember people's kids' names or what they've done in the past or where they went to school. It's really understanding, really appreciating, learning about people's background. I think you just need to lean in what you are natural at, but it's really hard to, especially in this day and age, to outcompete in certain things besides what you're really good at, what you generally care about. So that was one. The second thing is when I was 19, my sister's 4 years older than me. She brought me to the US, and the US was such an amazing place to check out for the first time. And again, a lot of entrepreneurial ventures there that got me really motivated. Sydney, I said, oh, I need to start this some startup. And what I found was just problems around I wanted to solve. And in my case, when at Sydney Uni, I saw the second-hand bookstore was trying to buy my textbook at 50% off the original price, and it would sell 75% off the original price to the next student. I said, why don't you just create a textbook service that let people exchange textbooks, and it was all around Australia, over 20 universities, and we saved a lot of people money. But that was essentially trying to solve people's problems and learning that how we can do that and using tech for it. And I would say definitely going to the US student exchange, study abroad for 1 year at Cornell really changed my life. And seeing this is how people at the next level at bigger scale, bigger markets really do it. But it's generally I'm now at that age where I can mentor people and share more information. But when I was at uni in Australia, someone like Steve Vamos, and back then he was running something called Amassing, ended up being Microsoft CEO, and went to the US and then came back to be Xero's CEO. He gave me time to really share a lot of knowledge. But then the US, it's at the next level where they would share knowledge based on the alumni status. So I'll go to these alumni conferences at Cornell. Cornell's like 4 hours north of New York City. You must really love something about Cornell for you to want to give back and spend time and just understanding why people are doing it, the businesses they're running, and just being soaking up the knowledge. And I think the first thing to do when you're networking is don't necessarily go and prepare for the ask, prepare to soak information and knowledge, because you never know what you're going to get from them. And in many cases, just knowledge is never an intro. I ask for them immediately. It's always about sharing on the experiences. I just genuinely care. And frankly, because of that, you're all going to be so much more knowledgeable based on their experiences and what they can share with you. And I think most people also love sharing about from their experiences in the past, because once you've been able to been successful in certain areas, you just want to help people to be successful as well. So definitely can attribute a lot of the way I run Zoogla, this 35,000 plus Google alumni community, but now key empowering so many more communities with that. Just learned it from someone like Steve early on in my career, but then over in the US, so many alumni want to give back, and whether it's through Cornell, but also doing a MBA that was joined with Berkeley, UC Berkeley, as well as Columbia. So many networks are built based on relationships and not necessarily just about so transactional.
So you're really touching on some of the key elements of what is absolutely special about people. Where's that intersection with AI that like can actually take that connection and not ruin it, like not make spammy,
Sure.
ugly, like so. How? Because I really feel like this is something that all entrepreneurs that are building anything now that can do more or less with everything with AI,
Yeah.
but there's some things they should never touch.
Yeah, sure. So look, I want to make sure I'm sharing knowledge, not necessarily pitching my startup here. If anyone wants to hear about the startup separately, they can definitely email me at chris@t.ai. But in terms of how we do it, is we really understand and use AI to create a profile for an individual. And this is all consent based. So someone who goes to our platform will be able to set the profile up. We look at what's in the internet, knowing about you. Perhaps you posted something on a social media site. Perhaps your profile is listed somewhere. We consolidate that information and show as you are entering the site. Is this you? And would you like to provide this information? And the information is usually about this is what I care about, what I'm working on. This is what I can help with people. This is what I need help on right now. And on the flip side, there's always going to be someone else who also provides that question where I'm going to try to look for someone. These are what I'm looking for. This is what I can provide an offer. That's what our AI does. Our AI really does that kind of magic. So let's say you're trying to travel to Silicon Valley. You're an Aussie founder in Sydney saying that this is the startup I'm working on. Maybe it's a fintech startup. They'll start looking within the networks that you have on our side who has already offered and raised their hand saying that I want to meet early stage fintech founders. It doesn't matter whether they result. They're more open to being connecting. There's so many social networks and so many other sites where you're just spamming someone saying, you have this fintech background, let me pitch you something. They're not raising their hand saying that I want to hear these things. But I think what we always try to do is say that, look, there's going to be a lot of people trying to match with each other. How to make sure on one side they're saying, I'm able to provide this kind of service, or I'm able to provide this kind of advice. On the other side, there's always someone trying to reach out to them. And there's so many people trying to make that match, whether it's investments, whether it's finding a job, whether it's just sharing knowledge. I think that's where we try to make AI work for both sides. You don't need to spend time crafting the best message or crafting the best profile. We want guys to come in, craft the best profile for you. Two, as you're reaching out to them and we after a suggestion of who you should need, we write that message for you to reach out to them. And three, as you're going to an online event or in-person event that's powered by Key, you also have the ability for you to swipe right or swipe left like a dating profile of who you should be reaching out to. And that's where we have AI make it most useful for you. Whether you're going to an online event or in-person event, we always see sort of you're mingling out that you don't know who to reach out to. And it's sort of up to you to sort of create that interest or try to figure out who should be the right person to meet, or do unfortunately go around them very quickly, not knowing who to meet with. But through Key and through AI, we're able to provide that kind of knowledge and information ahead of time.
Very useful. I mean, when I think about LinkedIn and cold outreach, it's almost like the last bastion, your email. But even then, you've got so many emails coming in at you. If you can increase the utility of your time through making the right connections and not spending as much time on all these platforms, is there a single thing you're trying to create with Key that there's so many different platforms out there. There's a million things in Slack, et cetera, connections. But what are you trying to achieve with Key, firstly?
No, that's the funny thing that you mentioned Slack. So one of the reasons why we started this platform was we've been using Slack in Zoogla from one of the earliest days. And after 30,000 messages in 90 days, the free version of Slack history gets wiped out. And if you think of someone who's looking for a job, or was just fired, or trying to find venture investment knowledge, the most powerful part of any community is historical knowledge. And if that history gets wiped out, that's the biggest pain, which you're not solving by tapping into this community. So what we have features on Key is we actually allow, based on the admin of the community's approval, have information from Slack and information on WhatsApp and the other chat channels consolidated onto the community's Key page, and where you're able to look at the opportunities and introductions that are made through that. And whether you do the other listeners, there's so many people who are always going to have so much trouble just catching up on different messages everywhere. So in this case, in the profile, you're going to say what you're trying to achieve, and you're able to get the people that can actually help you and actually be featured on this dashboard. So that's what we're actually making it easier, and using AI tools not only to consolidate all the information on all these channels, but to sort of signal to you, say, oh, these are the messages you should be reading and summarizing. If you do want to dig in deeper and try to ask more information, yeah, happily able to easily do that as well.
So I think that two things are happening in tech more and more is that people are seeing lots of people move to the US and therefore they want to make connections to customers, to VCs, to other founders. And I can imagine Key will be exceptionally useful there. But I'm also unfortunately seeing a lot of people laid off. And so I know that you saw, with Zoogla, it pretty much doubled. So that crisis that happened for people, what were you seeing people doing? Were they looking for assurances, jobs? What's the beauty of this community that you
So,
built?
yeah, to give you some historic context for your listeners, I left Google in 2015 and fell into running Zoogla. And then ex-Google community was something I realized that based on my job at Google, working with VC startups, internal people, how community come together help startup founders. And I've always wanted this community ever since my first startup when I was in uni in Sydney. And so it was meant to be that. It was meant to just be a community of me and a few ex-Googlers helping each other. But once the first event happened of 40 people, people are asking for demo days to where you can actually have investors meet startup founders. And the list goes on of different events. Everyone around the world I want to check out. In fact, last week I just came back from the latest Zoogla demo day in Bangalore. So there's demo days all around the world, Singapore, London, Zurich, Paris even. So there's been so many different demo days where people are wanting to help with get these connections based on a community, that community of ex-Googlers. And you mentioned that the community of ex-Googlers doubled from 14,000 to 28,000 in 2 months because of people hearing more about Zoogla, but also some people who were laid off back in 2023. And then we're seeing more communities start with this ex-Meta, ex-Atlassian, ex-Coinbase because of all the different layoffs everyone is having. What do you mention? What are people looking for? It's not necessarily, it's the assurance, but people in tech, that as with any high achieving individuals, whether they've been banking, perhaps legal, perhaps they went to a great school, they can attach their identity with that institution. And unfortunately, when the institution sort of pushes them out in a sudden way, where they suddenly perhaps an email cut off or access into all your corporate information is gone, it's a knee-jerk reaction where it's like, oh my gosh, what's my self-worth? You also, some of the people I've had to help over the past couple of years, they've been in Google for 20 years. And it's not necessarily personal to them in terms of how they're being let go, but they're just a line item, a number that they had to be actually moved off. So I think what we also always share, and we get a lot of experts to share on all these education sessions, we run over 300 a year, is to say that don't take it personally. It's not personal. The company just needs to make the decision based on certain criteria, and the further you will impact it that way. You know what? When you leave and you step out, there's so many people to help you. In fact, I've been able to help not only ex-Googlers, but the past 3 years, ex-Meta people. The first time people were impacted, helped them. The second time, the first batch helped the second batch. The third time that happened recently, the second batch came together to help the third batch. But it's such a warm community of people wanting to help you. And I think when you've gone through those situations yourself, like any traumatic situation, you want to be able to help people who maybe also going through that path, and also share the opportunities. One of the folks that was impacted by Meta, he didn't know to look at venture capital firms' websites for job openings, or think about what other startups may be looking at global, regional roles that can be online versus looking just at their location based on some of the jobs websites. So there's so many different tactics that has been accumulated over the years, that I really do feel that even though you're hit by such a traumatic experience, a lot of the prior waves of people were willing to help you. I think as we get more and more layoffs that happened, and just before getting on to this, someone was impacted on Friday, and I was helping her sort of ideate how she can actually find ways to actually connect with different individuals. And I think that's where the human aspect comes in. It's not just using AI to help you with connections, but in some ways, people want to talk to people. And that's where I've been able to also get a lot of people together, said, oh, if you have certain expertise, why don't you help all these other individuals too?
Brilliant. So can I ask you two questions? One relating to maybe something a little bit more controversial, which is when these layoffs are happening and people are expecting AI to do so much more, but it's not yet necessarily. And there's been an MIT study and probably lots of other studies that talk about AI has not yet really fulfilled all of the functionality that people were doing. So the question is relating to, do you think there is a gap in leadership? Is that what you're seeing? Is there a gap in the ability for people to plan? Is there genuinely overhiring? What are you seeing are you happy to even share some of the thoughts on that, Chris? Because you've
No, I
seen,
think it's all.
Oh,
It's
man,
all the above, right?
it's all the
But I
above.
think it's all the above. The first one is so many companies, what they can call overhiring in the pandemic, where they just hired a lot of people expecting even more growth to happen. And I think that's perhaps one aspect where if it was just normal times, they would actually hire a bit more of intently. And also you can think about it, right? If people are hired for a role during the pandemic, in many cases are online, remote work, they come back to the office, you can sort of assess their work a bit more, maybe they're the wrong fit. So I think that's one category. But say that a lot of managers perhaps and senior executives can use that as an excuse, but also use AI as an excuse for poor execution. I think in today's day and age, that a lot of changes that happen with AI, but everything else. And if you're a senior exec or you're working consultants, it's easy to blame over hiring the pandemic. We actually want to reorg based on AI, but then in many cases, you are blaming yourself as an executive. So I think that's one thing to think about. Can you use these two things as easy scapegoats? Talk about other studies. There was one study that came out as well to show that actually people want people to come in working in their offices because senior execs may want to actually be a senior exec and see that their team members that perhaps nothing to do with productivity, right? But in terms of AI itself being a reason why there's layoffs, yes, clearly be some part and component to that. But I would say that the most challenging part is someone needs to train the AI, and you do still need human in the loop to be able to have the best outcomes. And without having those human in the loop experts, and actually, unfortunately, letting these people go too early, you're going to get suboptimal results. I think that's what you're probably going to start seeing, that you perhaps need to rehire some of these people back. And I've seen across the board a lot of tech companies that have rehired people back. They unfortunately let go via a very cut and dry process when they realize we need these people back. Or managers, the senior execs realize, oh wow, this guy was a great asset of the company. Why should we let this talent go? Let's make sure we bring him or her back. So I've seen that happen as well. But I think that's where it's even more important to, in the age of AI, to not only to be able to arm yourself with the latest tools, but also be seen as an expert. I've been speaking to a couple of startups I've been mentoring, but also for individuals who are perhaps looking for the next opportunity, is that lean in on your AI knowledge and try to teach and knowledge share. Again, that's my background based on parents being teachers, based on the Zoogle community being a knowledge sharing organization, and now being key, giving knowledge unlock opportunities. But I do feel that in this day and age where AI is sort of on everyone's top of mind, if you're able to show that you're the expert in AI, it should be hired more quickly than others, whether it's in a full-time job, as a consultant, lead into it. There's no hiding away from it. If you can actually share that kind of knowledge with as many people as possible, you're going to be able to be more valuable than others. So if AI is going to take your job as a person that knows AI better, that's probably going to be hired over you.
Can we just go to that a little bit more too, Chris? Because I can't think of anyone better qualified to talk about what people did after they got laid off with AI. And this might apply also to students and even founders looking to hire really good talent. Is what are people with the 1,000 different things you can do with AI? What are the two or three things to think about and do and practice to actually get more valuable to a corporate? If that's what you want to do, you might go and be a founder, you might join a team, but what are the two or three things that you tell people, even if you were doing, let's pretend you're doing a lecture at, someone's about to graduate from university. What are you going to tell them that they should be focusing on to be more valuable? They've just done their degree, but you know what? That's just not enough now.
I'm glad we're doing a virtual call versus a live commencement speech, as I'll probably get thrown my tomatoes or walk up protest, talk about AI and to a graduating class. We've seen that a lot in the past few weeks. The first thing I would learn, the first thing I would share is that AI will actually develop so fast and so quick that its ability to learn and to knowledge share and also to be able to teach. It's probably what you want to one of my reunions in New York City this past few weeks, and the dean of the school was saying that, look, AI is disrupting our business. This is a business school, right? And how can they actually be more relevant this day and age? And the relevance is not necessarily knowledge sharing. Any business school, any school, university, frankly, it's the business is knowledge sharing, and AI can disrupt it so much quicker. People get this information, AI can actually do certain types of work, but it's really how to implement and use AI. And that's where, as I was mentioning, Going back to what I mentioned earlier, you really do need to be seen as the expert and knowing how to assess which AI tools are most important, how you can actually use it. So that's one. The second thing, the jobs will always be there in cybersecurity. I think as AI is to be more relevant, it's going to be more holes, there's going to be more loopholes, going to be AI actually trying to attack your company. And so I think actually leaning in on cybersecurity as sort of a subdomain, you're always going to find a job over there. So I think that's really interesting to lean on for those who are trying to look at jobs in cybersecurity. Check out Cyber or Survey and check out those companies. They're always going to be looking for people who are interested in cybersecurity. So I think that's the second one. The third is if you can spend time in Silicon Valley, spend time in Silicon Valley. Again, there's so many different developments happening, and you're only going to learn the latest by being right center in going up and down. There's a freeway called a 101, also 280, but 101 going from top of San Francisco, where OpenAI's offices as well as Anthropic's office are, all the way down to Google, all the way down to where Facebook is, further down to Apple and Nvidia. The knowledge sharing there goes into every social situation. Even some people who move there as in tech and able to learn so many things there that the developments are happening. And I think that's what has really rejuvenated to San Francisco after the pandemic and a lot of the crypto bubbles hit where everyone was able to leave the Bay Area. Now things are developing so quickly. Now everyone's coming back and actually going back into the Bay Area to see it. So to summarize, really learning and knowing how to learn and knowing how to teach. I think that's the skill to learn in the age of AI. And the second, cybersecurity, actually learning in that field of subdomain. And third, getting into the Bay Area as quickly as possible and spending time with people and just being exposed to all these different niche areas, but also all the communities that are out there. And you're going to be setting up yourself for success during this day and age.
Fantastic. So with that amount of new knowledge and meeting people, what can AI do that the human can't now around connections? Like I really, that win-win-win, the actually
Yeah.
understanding and caring and empathy and forgetting the fact that that's your title. What is it that AI does that can help you do connection better?
People and knowing context and knowing how to solve their problems and their team's problems. I think a lot of my training and understanding of how I set up my companies, since and evaluating perhaps people and companies is based on when I first graduated, got into a company called Expedia, had a great manager, a really smart guy. He's now I think the SVP of Expedia. His name's Hari Nair, but also these executives at Google that really knew how to sell. And when you're selling at the most senior level, like people are only buying from people who can solve problems, right? That's like there's so many different sales solutions that senior executives can buy, but they really want to buy from someone who can solve their problems. And I think that's the biggest thing you have to do. How do you understand someone's problems before you go into any meeting? It could be a social meeting, it could be a setting, and any of the AI tools you can set up can actually provide these executive briefings. Back in the day, when I was preparing for a lot of these meetings I had at Expedia and even Google working with clients, I had to do so much research, and there was definitely a lot of research tools. But today, any of the AI tools can actually provide you such a great summary ahead of time and get into minutiae and specific details. And that's what people want when they take meetings. How do you solve their problems? I think that's what AI can really do. That's, again, there's clearly different productivity tools, different ways to actually use the different always on recording devices and sort of the AI assistant. But the biggest tool I would say that you probably can actually use it for is preparing for every meeting you're going into and knowing who's going to the meeting, perhaps family background, what they're interested in, and just topics you can discuss. Now, back in before AI, it took loads of people to do a lot of these executive briefings, but now it's so much easier.
I feel like this is the networking and the second end, which is negotiation, are often really undervalued in terms of how important they are. And they often get called soft skills. And to be honest, I feel like these two things are anything but soft. They're incredibly powerful if you put the work in to try and master this sort of stuff. So when I think about the people listening today and they've got networks they need to negotiate, what are some of the things that you draw from, Chris, with all the different, you've raised money, like you've successfully raised money, you've successfully made thousands of connections. For someone listening that has their own connections, but maybe they're not doing enough with those. They think, I'll just get to 100,000 connections. I'll just get to 1,000 connections or this many followers. Or what's the time to stop accumulating and start really connecting? How do people start straight if they finish listening to this podcast? What's the first thing you ask them to do to connect better?
The first thing is for perhaps every week, think of who are the top 3 people you would like to reach out to as a fresh contact or reestablish that contact. It's not thinking, what can you do for this person or be relevant for this person? Again, a lot of people can think about personal greeting cards, physical cards, handwritten cards. The way I look at it is, how can you share an article with them that could be relevant to their business? And even some things I was at different occasions over the weekend, and again, these are contacts I've had in the past, and it's, wow, I just remember this person based on an experience I've had. And in many cases, everyone's brain works differently. But I think if you just have one thing to do is like, who are the 3 people that you want to have an actual relationship with, and map them out as a numbers game where how many more weeks are there for the remainder of the year? And can you send them something interesting that will be helpful to their business or themselves, or greeting that it's actually reestablished connections? I think, and make it genuine. I think that's where people want genuine outreaches versus some half-baked type of outreach. But if you actually would it help them and actually make them put a smile on the face versus another message I need to reply to, I think that's the one thing you can actually start doing, and it's fairly easy. And it could be someone that you may not know, it could be someone you've known in the past but haven't reached out to them. But I would say I'll start there, start with the simple stuff, and usually things go on. But the main thing is just that, how do you make sure this person remembers you? And when you really have to need their help with something, they're more able to easily respond to you versus the other people that they need to respond to.
Absolutely. And one of the things that occurs to me when every day you go online and you start to see all these messages that are coming at you, from emails to text to WhatsApp to LinkedIn, all those sorts of things, it becomes overwhelming. And like being able to find that 3, I feel like this is a really important company you're building, Chris. That email at chris@key.ai. So
Yeah,
what
actually, now,
reach out to Chris and we'll fill his inbox a bit here. But he's a
yeah.
great
Thank you, Dave. I've been happy to look whether it's getting investors like the folks at Archangels in Australia, to Felicis in the US, to Singapore, Mansell. Also got a lot of Sequoia scouts in Europe to invested in our route. Look, I think everyone knows there's a problem where we have too many contacts, and how we don't show how to leverage our networks, both unlock opportunities for ourselves, but for others. But that's what we hope. And if I can give people more demos and be helpful to others, just reach out, Chris at key.ai, or good old fashioned way on any of the social networks. I'm pretty easily found.
I love it. I love it. Now, Chris, we do this world famous part of this podcast as we start to draw to a close, and it's called the lightning round. So you don't
Awesome.
have time to think, Chris. You just have to go, what's the first thing that comes to your
Go.
mind? Are you ready to go?
Ready. Let's go.
Okay, baby. Best connection that you've ever made.
The early ones, Steve Amos, running at 9MSN back then, and he's Microsoft CEO. That's the earlier you make these connections, one, they're willing to actually provide you their time because you're a student, but also they really provide you so much knowledge, and knowledge sharing became the CEO zero later in life as well.
I'm gonna call this out, Chris, that because of all the people you knew, you picked an Australian.
I met him when I was super young. It's
Doesn't matter what. I don't care what. I'm just saying you picked an Aussie. I love it. I love it. So networking move that always fails. Like there's obviously things that just people do wrong. What always fails when you're trying to network? That's just
I don't need to have another lunch with someone. Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you coffee? It's like, I don't need another meal. I'd say just be genuine with what you need, and just say what you need. And I guess it depends on, for me, I'm willing to help as many people as possible as I physically can. That's why I started this company, Key. I was like, run out of physical means. I'm using AI to help people. But if I can help people, for sure, just send me a note and I'll try to be helpful as possible.
okay. One person that every founder who should follow, and maybe they're not, but who should they follow? Right? Who do you really admire?
Person that made an impact on my life right after I left Google, his name's Qasar, Qasar Yunus. Qasar Yunus is the founder of a right now valued at $15 billion, applied intuition. It's a top physical AI company. But what made him interesting, he sold his company to Google after he graduated from YC. About 3.5 years in, Paul Graham asked him to go back to YC. He served as a COO and partner there. And so after 3.5 more years at YC, he left, and Mark Andreessen went under the board directly. And everyone was trying to get into his round, and he's built an amazing company. And then Casa Units, check out his website. He started Postmodern X. He refused to for a lot of this time, but he's starting to push it out now, a lot of his knowledge sharing. So definitely follow Casa Units and check out his website.
Last person who changed your life with an intro.
Changed my life with an intro. So you want to know the person or the person that introduced me, or the person that changed my life?
You, Chris. I mean, you could mention I mean, I've met your parents, they've changed your life, but I think we're after someone in business.
I want to take the question differently. So I think people always think that people can change their lives by an intro. I would say do more for a community, and the intros flooded. So I'll give myself an example. I never expected to run a Google community, and from there, run this community has grown to 35,000 people. It's taken many years, but through that, I've been able to contact as many people as I wanted to, including Google's first angel investor, who sits at Alphabet's board, and do more for others, and people want to help you. So I never expected to get help based on running a community, but as a result, I'm able to get to most of the people I need to or want to as a result of running a community and being helpful to others. So I would say just think of, sort of flip it and say, how can I help others? In this case, a large community. Can you run a large community yourself? And I'm sure you can. And the years of perseverance only help you over time. And that's how I found my lead investor of Aiden Stankoot from Felicis. One lead investor is now on the Midas list for the past 12 years. And once he came in, the round was closed and completed. It was oversubscribed, and that's what you need. And I found him via running the ex-Google community.
Love it. We'll finish up there, Chris, because I know that you've got a lot on. You're doing God's work, mate. Yeah. Helping all of these founders and people all around the world. And I want to say how privileged I feel to know you, and I really appreciate the time you've given to our community. And thank you so much for your wisdom and building Key.ai and offering so many amazing things and sharing so much wisdom. So you're an absolute legend. And thank you for mentioning Australia's the first great network person that you met.
That was amazing. Still remember we met at Citigroup Tower, and next time I'm in Sydney, let's grab a beer at Ryan's Bar at Australia Square. We'd love to catch up.
That would be amazing, Chris. Thank you so much, legend. You take care.
Cheers.